Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode in my series where I'm recapping and reviewing every single book in the Animorphs series. Today we are talking about Animorphs 32 and I just want to take a moment to say that I know I've been saying I think this series will be done by this time next year. I think it's actually going to be June. Today we are talking about Animorphs 32, The Separation, and this is, hands down, the best cover in this series so far. I mean, just look at it. It's majestic, it's terrifying, it's horrifying, and honestly, so is this book. To be honest, for this whole thing, I could just show this cover and you'd get what the video was and we'd be done, but I think we're going to need to dig into it. So, this is a Rachel book, which in my experience tend to feature a lot of violence and grappling with the idea about whether violence is good or not. Will that be the case in this one? You'll have to watch and find out. Or go read the book, I guess. Rachel fills us in on the rather depressing state of affairs, the alien invasion and all that, but thankfully they have morphing powers and maybe that means they can do something to stop it. But maybe not in this book because we're still very much in that stage where none of the books can make any real difference to anything because we're getting towards the end now. So, the book opens, Rachel's down on the beach investigating the tide pools. It is a field trip of sorts. And she reflects that this kind of thing just isn't that thrilling anymore when you've done all the stuff that she has. We'd been informed by our android allies, the Chi, that the Yeerks were at work on a secret new weapon, an anti-morphing ray. We didn't know enough yet to launch an attack, but attack we would. And then there'd be the leaping and screaming and bleeding and the nightmares. Anyway, back to the tidal pools. That's what I care about. Anti-morphing ray, pah! Tell me about the fish and wildlife and such. So Rachel is chilling by the tide pools, having a look, and she notices a starfish on the side of the pool that does like a little wiggle, and as she notices that, her earring falls out, and alas, they are expensive earrings that her dad brought back from overseas. She's not going to be able to replace them at the mall. She gets really cross at herself and the situation, and in a moment of what I'm going to call irrational thought, she decides to acquire the starfish DNA. She's getting that earring back. So she strips down to her morphing clothes and then she realises she probably ought to check if there's anyone around, and sure enough, some kid from her class, Bailey, is there. Looking good, he repeated. Looking real good. I think we've been over that, I said. Now go away. You are so stuck up. That's right, I am. Now you know the difference between good looks and a good personality. A role model indeed. And so with Bailey sent packing, Rachel morphs to Starfish and immediately realises that this was a bad idea because starfish don't have eyes. She crawls about a bit to try and find it, and sure enough, after 10 minutes she managed to wiggle her way over to something that feels vaguely earring shaped, and she clambers back to the edge of the pool with the earring gripped in her starfish mouth, I guess, only for something to grab her. I tried to make sense of it all, but all I knew for sure was this: I'd been able to count to 5 on my starfish legs. Now I could only count to 2. Thankfully, we managed to use that age-old Animorphs reset. Rachel demorphs back to human and hauls herself out to the edge of the rock, where she sees 2 boys and a metal shovel. Yeah, they chopped her in half. I'll kill him, I said. Kill him. Kill the filthy little creep. Morph to grizzly bear and tear him apart. No, not the kid. Bailey. His fault. He delayed me. Otherwise it would have all worked perfectly. Rachel, in the back of her head, thinks this might be something of an overreaction, but she thinks the boy needs to learn a lesson anyway. She finishes unmorphing, which is an unpleasant experience, but better than dying. As she hops up, she sees a blonde girl running away that she doesn't recognise, but it's probably fine and we won't think about it too much. And she managed to get her earring back, so it's all good. No harm, no foul. Everything's fine. Things are a bit weird. Rachel's having something of an existential crisis when she has these 2 options. She can go to the mall after school with Cassie, or she can go meet Tobias for a fly around. She's not sure which one she wants to do. She's not sure if she's a good person or not. She's having a lot of questions and emotions that she's not used to having. But eventually she decides to go and see Tobias in the meadow. I haven't seen Jake. Don't worry, he'll get word to us if there's killing to be done. Ha! Anti-morphing ray. You have to admire the Yeerks. They never stop trying. They never stop trying to take us down. Now, let's fly. There's a few pages of flying description, which I'm sure are meant to lull us into a nice false sense of security. Everything's fine and nothing has gone wrong at all. And sure enough, Rachel dives down and grabs a fish. She's not normally one to do a quick snack while in eagle morph, but she does. She goes down, grabs it, tears out its heart and eats it before it's even stopped beating. Tobias is concerned that she's lost control of her morph and starts to say so, and then we cut to Cassie and Rachel at the mall. Cassie thinks that Rachel seems a little bit off, but there's shopping to be done, so they keep doing it until they run into a girl who gives Rachel a bit of a dirty look. Instead of getting fiery, Rachel starts to cry, and they run to a bench outside the baby gap. She, Cassie, stood with her hands on hips and a shocked expression on her face and looked down at me. Okay, she said. What have you done with Rachel? This is a series where that is a genuine concern. And cut to Rachel, who is in the mall but hates the mall. But she's there because she left her clothes behind, and then she got home and she realised that she hates all of her clothes. They're all super girly. She wants leather. specifically. She spots Cassie running towards the baby gap, but she doesn't fancy a chat right now, and there's a shop over here that sells just knives. Knives are cool, let's go look at the knives. Aw, it's the crybaby, someone said. Some girl. I pushed past her. She grabbed my arm. This was a mistake. I grinned at her. Back off, you hideous, putrid, diseased-looking lump of lard, I said. Burn. The girl pushes her again and Rachel rams her into a knife rack and sincerely debates killing this girl and then decides that actually the two of them might kind of get on. They've both got this fiery energy, and so instead she just uses several knives to pin the girl to the countertop through her jumper. She's not doing a murder at this point. All this while the girl screams, and then Rachel sort of says, hey, we could have been friends, and leaves, walking out past mall security who don't care, aren't interested in arresting her. It's fine. Cut to Rachel in Cassie's barn, and Cassie's barn is suddenly seeming really scary. Jake was there. He's my cousin. He's cute, kind of big. I mean, if we weren't cousins. And Marco was there too. He's cute too, in a different way. I would probably go out with him if he asked me. And Tobias, of course. He was up in the rafters, fluffing up his wings. He's cute when he's human. Let's just let this play out, but yeah, I don't like that at all. Let's not talk about whether we would date our cousins or not. Cassie tells everyone about Rachel crying at the mall, which stuns everyone, as you might expect. Cassie looked at me. Rachel, tell me what you said to me about Marco on the way over here. What? What you said to me on the bus about Marco. You mean that he was funny? Oh my, Jake whispered. Rachel, Cassie pressed. What do you think of Marco's looks? I shrugged. I smiled. He's like, cute, all right. Marco sat down very suddenly on the hay-strewn floor. Jake looked pale. Oh no. Axe snaps his tail blade to Rachel's throat because obviously they have reached the conclusion that there must be a yeek inside her brain. But no. That doesn't make any sense, because a yeek inside Rachel would still be acting like Rachel. It wouldn't make sense to completely change her personality. And then the doors to the barn dramatically burst open, and what we all figured out, but what they did not yet know, comes to light. There are two Rachels. They appear to be identical, Axe said. Cool, Marco said, climbing to his feet. Now Tobias can have one, and I can have the... Ah! Thankfully, at that point, angry Rachel, as I'm calling her for now, because they have not yet determined a name for her, smacked Marco about a bit, because yeah... Not okay. The two Rachels are getting close to a fight, but it's stopped by the arrival of Eric, the Chi. Less violent Rachel remarks that he too is kind of cute in a way. And Eric has some thoughts on this Rachel conundrum. Hello, honey. Hi. You sit there for a little bit, okay? So they workshop some names at this point, and from now on I'm going to go with Mean Rachel and Nice Rachel. They're not ideal, but they will work, and they're what tends to be used in the book. They use some other words. For the sake of this video, let's go with Mean Rachel and Nice Rachel. I can't stay long, Eric said, unable to stop looking from me to Mean Rachel and back again. I just came to update you guys on the mission. To the Yeek Pool, Mean Rachel crowed. Let's get some flamethrowers. I gotta stop hanging around with you people, Eric said. You people are just plain strange. In fairness, they are having a more strange than normal day, and their days are normally quite strange. So, Eric tells them that the Yeeks have bought the Buyers Research Institute, which is basically a place where they test things that people are going to buy, like to find the best Hoover or something, I think. And the basic assumption is that they're keeping the anti-morphing ray there. They're going to test it there. Mean Rachel doesn't even let Eric finish telling them the information before she's all, we need to bust in there and punch everything. But they persuade her to let Eric get back with the details. You're going to make doing the continuity for this one really difficult. I hope you know that. Is that okay? Could you lie down? You're really hanging my leg. And it would seem that preliminary testing on the anti-morphing ray begins tonight. Now, this could have quite an impact on their lives if they're not able to morph anymore, so they really need to deal with it now. Eric heads off, and only now do we get into the meat of the question, which I think I would have been forcing earlier than now. What on earth is going on? And the two Rachels have a bit of an argument, but they manage to get out that, yeah, there was a whole starfish morph and they get chopped in half, and Cassie figures it out first, that because starfish can regenerate, they've regenerated as two different Rachels. That's what's happened. Wait a minute, I cried. The shrimp boy is right. I should have seen the possibilities, but I'm getting confused. The wimp here can attend school and keep the rents happy, and I can spend 100% of my time in fierce battle against the Yeeks. I'll annihilate them. I'll crush them. They won't know what hit him. It'll be full-time Rachel on the loose. Thankfully, Jake is here to tell Rachel that maybe you sit this one out. In fact, you sit this one out. Okay, I think you need to sit this one out. Do you think you could go to your bed? So, of course, in response to this, Mean Rachel threatens to kill them all. It's probably fine. It's fine. Nice Rachel watches as Mean Rachel sneaks into their house in cockroach morph and then demands that Nice Rachel give up the bed for her. The only risky business is when Rachel's sister Jordan asks if Rachel is talking to herself in her room, but she kind of is, so I guess it's fine. Both of them are having a hard time focusing for some reason, but Mean Rachel is adamant that she wants to go on this mission. But Jake said, hey, Jake isn't the boss of me, Mean Rachel snapped. He may not be the boss of anything much longer. The powerful rule over the weak. The strong survive, honey pie, and I am the strong. Which parasitic slug friend does that sound like? And unable to fight her mean alter ego, Nice Rachel stands by as Mean Rachel morphs to owl and flaps on out of the house. Nice Rachel's only plan is to call her dad. She even writes it down so she doesn't forget. I was trapped in a nightmare. And it wasn't just this being split in two thing. I'd been trapped in a nightmare since that awful night when we first ran into El Fango and he, messed up our lives and all. Nice Rachel even conceptualises Mean Rachel as this kind of horrible thing that has grown inside her and has now been cut off. Which is a fun way of conceptualising this trauma. Yeah. Oh, this is going to be hard to edit into a fun video. Okay, let's keep going. So she calls her dad, but for us, the reader, we are back with Mean Rachel. She's flying along in Animorph. No real plan, just sort of a get to the Buyers Research Institute and see what happens next. As she's flying along, she spots a cat, finally, a worthy adversary, but the cat manages to dodge out of the way. Rage boiled up within me. I wanted that kill. I wanted that kill. I needed that kill. I needed to feel my talons breaking bone and squishing brain, and yet another failure to focus. Evidence that maybe this split isn't just two different Rachels. Something worse is going on here. Rachel lands and basically screams with rage until this tidal wave of feeling wears off into something that just leaves her kind of trembly and shaky. It might even be fear. Fear of myself. And yet, the hunger was not lessened in any way. I had missed this kill. I wouldn't miss the next. And with that horrifying statement, she heads on off to the Buyers Research Institute. Rachel observes this Business Research Institute office building from above and realises there isn't an obvious door except for this truck bay, which has a ramp down to a door that is sealed. While she flies around the window, she notices an alarm is going off. Her friends obviously need help. So she swings around above the truck bay and observes the loading dock, and then she lands and morphs to Grizzly Bear, in which form she rips off the door of one of the trucks, boots the truck driver out, and as a bear drives the truck. Now, in fairness, she doesn't need to drive it well, but she does drive it as a bear. And she basically aims it for that door she can't get through, and sure enough, it works. She manages to get through the door. Having survived a truck crash, Mean Rachel makes her way inside, and we cut back to Nice Rachel on the phone with her dad, who is, for a moment, quite convinced that his daughter is on drugs, because I think it's pretty obvious why. He's then convinced that it's boy trouble because he's a 90s dad and those are the only things they think that problems can be. Does it involve boys? Yes! Yes, it does. How did you guess? Actually, 3 boys. I mean, 4 if you count this one guy who's okay, not exactly a boy, if you know what I mean. A man? He shrieks in my ear. A man? You're going out with a man? Are you seeing a college kid? No, Daddy, darn. That's not what I mean. It's just that he's foreign. An alien. Of course, her dad means from another country. Not an alien in the sense that Rachel means it. This is very confusing. Rachel isn't able to make much sense over the phone, and her dad is understandably quite concerned, so they make plans to meet at the airport tomorrow before his next flight. I heard the phone ring, but by then I was already heading downstairs. My mum picked up. I could hear her voice, sounding icy. No, she is not on drugs. I would know. Unlike certain people, I see her every day. Oh, snap. Back to Mean Rachel trying to start a Mercedes by using a bear claw as a key. It works, and she accelerates through the testing facility. There are automated tests happening all around, and as far as she can tell, no humans. But a different alarm has started going off, presumably the "a bear has rammed a truck through our steel door" alarm. And then a bunch of Hawkbajier run past, presumably heading for the other Animorphs, but Rachel drives the car into them in a kind of succession of violent car actions. Again, hard to make this into a fun video. Let's keep going. It was the most fun I've ever had. I mean, if there's a heaven, it must be a lot like this. And the fun is just getting started, as now there are more Hawkbajier, there are human controllers and Taxons. Then she hears the roar of a tiger, and yes, it is the other Animorphs also in battle. Perhaps as many as 15 Hawkbajier, 4 humans, 3 Taxons versus a tiger, a gorilla, a wolf, a young Andalite warrior, and a Hawkbajier that had to be Tobias. Rachel says something disturbing about the beauty of a battlefield and dives right in. And cut back to Nice Rachel's perspective. Some time has passed and the 2 Rachels are together in her room again. Mean Rachel is angry. She managed to beat up most of the enemies and they did escape, but then Jake chewed her out for ruining the whole plan, basically. Nice Rachel nods and smiles and generally doesn't do anything to stop this because there's no stopping Mean Rachel at this point. She was the one who would decide what was done. So what if she decided she didn't like sharing her life with me? Would she? Oh my god, I realised. Yes, she would. We're already halfway through the book as well. Oh my god, I realised. Yes, she would. I need to pause because I need to check I put something away. Hi. It's been a day, as in it is both a day has passed since the last time I was here, and also that day was intense. Luna's doing much better, and hopefully both of us have learned a lesson, both not to eat things that I leave out and not to leave things out. But time stops for no woman, and I must finish Animorphs, so let's keep going. Nice Rachel heads to school with no idea what Mean Rachel is up to. She runs into Cassie, who says, yeah, we're going to meet in the barn after school because what else do you do with your time? Nice Rachel wonders whether maybe she should just quit. I mean, it would make Mean Rachel happy. She doesn't really like morphing. It freaks her out a bit. What are the downsides? And also that evening she has to meet her dad at the airport and she's got to get a bus there because the idea of morphing to bird in order to get there terrifies her. But while she's pondering that, Marco shows up to be a pain. So, purely hypothetical here, he whispered. Mean Rachel goes with Tobias, right? And you think I'm cute, right? No. No. But she cottons on to the fact that clearly Marco and Cassie are actually testing her. They're trying to see if she's losing it or not. I'm not convinced she's passing that test. She's pretty close to blurting out everything. I mean, she's useless to the Animorphs, so why not? Cut to Mean Rachel. She is early to the barn where they're planning on meeting, and she morphs to fly in order to spy on everyone else. First to show up is Eric, who is there to impart that all-important plot, and Mean Rachel is annoyed that Eric chose to reactivate his pacifist programming, surprising no one. The others arrive, and Mean Rachel hears how the Yeeks are planning on moving the anti-morphing ray as a result of the raid that they did on the BRI. They're taking it somewhere, they don't know where. The Yeeks are planning to take 3 different trucks, so 2 of them can be decoys and 1 of them can be the actual truck. Eric seems to have something bothering him, and when pressed about it, it seems the reason is Nice Rachel. She's done it, hasn't she? She's found the way to fight a war and suffer none of the pain. She takes all the evil inside her and sends it off on its own to do what has to be done. Tobias brings up this revelation to say we really ought to decide what we're going to do about the 2 Rachels. Axe has been trying to figure out a way to stick them back together, but apparently it would take both oodles of power and the consent of both Rachels. There's also a risk that they would die. Cassie says nope, that's an unacceptable risk, but Marco points out that with the 2 Rachels they have now, the risk is high enough that everything's pretty unacceptable. Psychotic. Was Marco saying I was crazy? Crazy? Why? For wanting to annihilate my enemies? For standing up for myself? For taking no bull? He was going to regret saying that. It's a great way to come across more sane. Cassie mentions the fact that the split seems to be much more complicated than they first thought. It's not just Mean Rachel and Nice Rachel. Their long-term versus short-term planning seems to be impacted. So keeping one Rachel, either one of them, wouldn't work. Half a Rachel is not enough. As you can imagine, Mean Rachel doesn't take the accusation of being useless to them well, and she demorphs. But as she does that, angrily, she realises that she made a mistake because in human form, where she is heading, she is at her most vulnerable. Axe comes closer. She cries out, "Please don't kill me!" Probably not in that voice, but... And as Mean Rachel is more fly than human, Nice Rachel shows up in order to see her own face with a horrifying fly proboscis coming out of it. And also, Mean Rachel's trying to strangle Marco. It's not a nice thing to come into. "Rachel, what are you doing?" Tobias yelled, more mad than scared. "Sorry, my love," she sneered, "but as a predator, you'll understand." Rachel's play, Mean Rachel I should say, her play here is to become leader of the Animorphs. Jake agrees, saying he was fed up with everything anyway. First order, as leader of the Animorphs, is to kill Marco. No, wait, hang on, he might be useful. Let's just whip him, it'll be fine. Jake agrees, again, and then punches Mean Rachel in the face. Enough of a distraction for Marco and Cassie to grab her arms, and for Axe to whip up his tail blade again. Tobias, who previously she was threatening to kill, flaps up to the top of the barn to safety. Mean Rachel has an out-of-control fit of rage while being held down by the others. Nice Rachel has a cry, both of them are in shock. Generally, things aren't going super well. She had made me brave. She had made me strong. Poor, sick, twisted thing. She had made me... me. Make a fun Animorphs series, Judith. It'll be silly fun times. Yay! Back to Mean Rachel's perspective, and she's convinced that everyone's making a fuss over nothing. Those death threats, they were just death threats. It's fine. Don't worry about it. She realises that she can't use the planning part of her brain. If she tries to access it, it's just not there. She cannot make a plan. She had that part of me, that rotten little weasel. Wussy Rachel had part of my brain, a part I needed. I'd have to take it from her. I'd have to... How? Uh-oh. She storms around their shared bedroom, not really knowing what to do because presumably killing her wouldn't work. But she ought to find out where Nice Rachel is, because if she isn't here, that must mean she's plotting against Rachel. Mean Rachel. This is going to get complicated. She spots the note where Nice Rachel has written down where she's planning on meeting her dad, and she morphs to bird and zooms off to the airport. Beyond that, she doesn't know what she's going to do, but it'll probably involve killing someone. Yay! Back to Nice Rachel perspective, and she's having a pastry in the airport waiting for her dad and wondering what she's going to say. I mean, it's hard to lead with this whole alien invasion thing. And also, her dad might be a controller, in which case it would be really bad to reveal the Animorphs' identities. Her dad shows, and she tries to figure out if he's a controller or not, but there's no real way of telling, which is kind of the crux of this series, to be honest. And just as she's about to start spilling the beans, she notices Mean Rachel glaring at her across the airport. And she does what any of us would do when confronted by our angry clone. She starts crying and runs to the bathroom. Back to Mean Rachel perspective, and as Nice Rachel runs past, she tries to trip her because she's just that horrible, but it doesn't work. And instead she goes and sits down in front of her dad. Or their dad, I should say. "What's up?" my father said. He looked... I thought that was Rachel and she's been like, "What's up?" But no. "What's up?" my father said. He looked closely at me. "Did you just change clothes?" "Yeah, leotard. Big thing now." "Are you barefoot?" The dad's latest theory, of 90s dad's theories, is that she's joined a cult. Again, more observant than most parents in this series, but still. He's very confused when Rachel starts angrily yelling at the waitress, but he doesn't have long before his connecting flight. This conversation really needs to move along. "I've been really, really busy. You know I love you." "Bet you don't anymore," I said, and guffawed again at my wit. Oh, those teens and their guffawing. Nice Rachel is circling around to behind Mean Rachel, but Mean Rachel's not standing for this. She'll stop it the only way she knows how. Murder! No, I'm just kidding. She starts a food fight which no one else participates in, and she does indeed get kicked out of the airport. And her dad gets on his plane because this isn't concerning enough to not go to work. Okay, back to Nice Rachel, who's feeling rather hemmed in by all of these events. She can't go to her mum. They don't have that kind of relationship where you can just talk about your evil twin and all of that stuff. So she goes to see Cassie, who is on her way to the mission, which Nice Rachel forgot was happening. Tobias shows up. "We're used to crazy," Tobias said. "I mean, who else would, care about someone like me? It takes a fairly crazy girl to like a bird boy." They have to explain to her that it's not that they prefer other Rachel to her, it's just that they want the original, undivided Rachel. "But you can't expect me to ever want her back inside me, can you?" I asked. No time to dig into that as the others turn up. Not Mean Rachel as yet. But Jake tells Nice Rachel not to leave. They need her. "And Mean Rachel, I assume you're hearing some morph spying on us, so you can hear this too," he said. "Look, we have this convoy thing. 3 trucks, 3 directions. If we eliminate both Rachels, that leaves us with 5 people for 3 trucks, meaning that someone's on their own. I don't like that. Everyone needs backup." Axe points out that, yeah, this is probably a trap. They'll need a minimum of 6 people, 2 people for each truck. So they'll need to either take Rachel or Rachel. Mean Rachel emerges from where she's been hiding and tries to expose Nice Rachel for almost spilling all of the beans. But it turns out they already knew about that. They weren't going to leave the Rachels unwatched. Jake reminds Mean Rachel that the last time this happened, they dumped David out as a rat in the middle of the ocean. Mean Rachel does not take the news that they don't want to take her on the trip very well, but Jake deals with it by taking the brunt of her bare-handed blows. As in, she does not have anything on her hands. She does not have bare hands right now, although she can. "Bare-handed you attack a tiger," Jake said. "That's why you aren't going." "I am going," she said weakly. "No," Jake turned his orange and black face to me. "You are." To me being Nice Rachel. So he says it's Nice Rachel's duty to go. It seems that Mean Rachel got the anger, but Nice Rachel got that important sense of duty. "She goes, I go," Mean Rachel yelled. "Okay," Jake relented. Mean Rachel looked happy, until Axe slapped her on the side of her head with the flat of his tail. Then she just looked unconscious. There's no point tying her up as she'll just morph out of it, so they just agree, she's probably going to interfere at some point. Let's get as much of the plan out of the way as possible before she does. And if she does turn up, let's assume she's an enemy. Rachel screws her courage or sense of duty to the sticking place and finally musters the courage or sense of duty to morph to Owl. She has a minor freak out about being in the air, but they manage to fly over to the BRI. Nice Rachel thinks about how actually it's Mean Rachel who's managed to get her through all of the stuff they've got through. Her courage is important. She wonders how the others would fare if they were split in 2 like she was. What percentage of them would be angry, which percentage would be nice? But before we have enough time to go into that, they make it to their destination and split off. Rachel is going with Jake. He instructs her to land onto the roof of the truck, which freaks her out, but he relies on that sense of duty again and gets her to stick. At that point, Jake has to talk her into demorphing and then remorphing to cockroach, claiming that there's a bridge coming up that'll smush her human form absolutely flat. Not true. Jake is lying to get what he wants, but It does work in this scenario. The truck drives into some sort of tunnel and there's a smell of gas before they all pass out. And then Nice Rachel wakes up in a box barely bigger than her cockroach form. She is freaking out, but she hears Jake's thoughts speak words. Do not demorph or you will die. This box is too strong. Before we can get into that, we cut back to Mean Rachel, who is pretty annoyed at having been knocked unconscious. Incandescent with rage and just a little distracted by the idea of grabbing a snack, she morphs and she flies on after them. She spots in the distance Nice Rachel having a hard time demorphing on top of the truck and follows at a distance, not quite fast enough to catch the truck. She watches, still planning on a bit of a rage spiral as the truck pulls into an old foundry. She still isn't able to work on the kind of long-term planning stuff, she just wants to follow them. Back to Nice Rachel, who is full on freaking out at the prospect of being a roach forever. Understandable. Jake does his best to get her to chill out, saying the Yicks do not know that we are here. They do not know that we are us. They gassed the whole truck and they boxed every single thing that fell off. Jake tells her to look around, see if that will calm her down. She can see Hawkbajir and she can see a big countdown clock on the wall that the Yicks have put there to freak out any Andalite bandits that they've caught because the Yicks are intense. Jake warns Rachel that she cannot say anything to the Yicks. She cannot give away their identities. Help me, I began to scream in open thought speak. Rachel, no. Help me, I'll tell you anything, just let me go. Her box is snapped up and then she falls through the air. Yes, that Hawkbajir, at least one of them, was Mean Rachel. She joined the group of Hawkbajir as she didn't want to be deprived of the joy of killing her friends herself. I guess they're not her friends if she wants to kill them. But Mean Rachel deals with the other Hawkbajir, sending them skidding into a pile of bug boxes. She fights them in a frenzy of battle that should be familiar at this stage. One of the Hawkbajir has set off the alarm and is throwing the bug boxes at her, but she slashes them in half with her wrist blades. She deals with that Hawkbajir and moves to grab the boxes containing Jake and Rachel, but then a wall comes up and there are even more Hawkbajir and everyone's favourite villain, Visser 3. He quite smartly tells them to close the wall again behind them so they can't escape. Very wise. She yells for the Visser to come on in so I can beat you up, but in classic evil villain form, he has realised that his Andalite body gives him wisdom of the fears of Andalites, and one thing they really fear is being crushed. I think a lot of things fear being crushed, but sure, go off, Visser. And the ceiling of the foundry starts to lower. There's some engineering that's gone into this. Back to Nice Rachel, who has managed to make it out of one box, but is now in another rapidly shrinking box. Trapped between a Mean Rachel and a hard place. She manages to get back to human and sees that Mean Rachel has also demorphed. Their assumption is they aren't being watched as they're being crushed. It's probably fine. I came here to kill you, you and Jake, she said, but as you can see, we have other problems. They do indeed. That ceiling is still coming down. Mean Rachel also might have trodden on Jake, unconfirmed at this time. We shouldn't be human, I said softly, crying hot tears for Jake. Visser 3, I don't think he can see in here, she said. But she was doubtful. Obviously the thought had just occurred to her. But still, she was probably right. If Visser 3 had visual contact with us, he'd have come in by now, seeing us as humans. Mean Rachel was right. By accident. Mean Rachel wants to morph to Grizzly, but it's pointed out that maybe getting bigger in this situation is not the answer. So what does Visser 3 want? He doesn't want them to die. He wants them to surrender so he can use their Andalite bodies to have more Andalite hosts. Mean Rachel then does the unthinkable. She asks Nice Rachel what they ought to do. But it's back to Mean Rachel's perspective to enact the plan that they had off-page. Nice Rachel thought speaks to the Visser, who, remember, thinks there's only one of them, and she says she's going to use her Hawkbajir blades to slice her own throat. This will make her body useless to him. Mean Rachel is in Flymorph and watches as Visser 3 lifts up the wall again and flies out. As Visser 3 monologues about the futility of trying to stop him, Mean Rachel flies into his ear. I was in far enough. Visser, I said. Oh, Visser 3. Credit to the Visser, he immediately realises that there are two of them and he's been duped. But Mean Rachel lets him know where she is. Visser, I'm in your ear, Visser, way down inside your head. I can practically see the real you, the Yirk slug. And here's the thing you need to think about, Visser. What happens when a morphed Andalite the size of a fly demorphs inside your head? You die, he yelled. So would you, I said. The two Rachels relay to the Visser that they want safe passage out of there. They will leave if he lets them leave. So Mean Rachel flies out of his ear as they make their way out of there, and the Visser threatens to kill them the next time he sees them, which, sure, buddy. Hawkbajir Rachel collapses into sobs as soon as they get out of there, which is a fun mental image when you think about it. Big Hawkbajir, big cry. I have to demorph, okay, she cried. Then you can kill me if you want. Heavy stuff, but once the two girls have demorphed, Jake turns up. Turns out Mean Rachel did nearly squash him, but he managed to survive. I wanted the two of you to find a way out, Jake said calmly as he became more human than Roach. You had to figure out that you need each other. Was almost revealing our identities to Visser 3 really worth this team bonding moment, Jake? Apparently so. Of course you need me, I yelled. I'm me, but you're just you. Me, Rachel, Jake said. Without her, you're out of the Animorphs, period. You can't join the Yeerks, you can't fight them alone. You want to be a warrior, you need to be able to plan, to have a healthy capacity for fear, and, by the way, a sense of duty. So it's time to enact Axe's plan to glue the two Rachels back together. They're in the barn, the others are fine, the other trucks were decoys. Apparently they didn't feel the need to gas those as well. I guess that wasn't a priority. And because we are in a series of books where nothing they do matters, the anti-morphing ray is still in play and they don't really know where it is. But for now, they just need to fix Rachel. I began to acquire my twin. Her DNA flowed into me as mine flowed into her. I felt the soft listlessness of the acquiring trance. Would this really work? I was acquiring her, she me, but I didn't feel any less like myself. And then Eric the Chi drops his hologram and places a hand on both of the Rachels, electrocuting them. He electrocutes them as both of them morph the other, and this does science. And we then have only one Rachel. Are you okay? Cassie asked. Okay. I wanted to cry. It was me again, for whatever that was worth. The coward was in me, the killer too, human and animal. Rachel, do you want to sit down? Maybe talk? Cassie asked. But there's only one Animorph who will truly understand this duality of being that Rachel is going through. It's our favourite bird boy, Tobias. The two of them go have a heart-to-heart. And that's Animorphs 32. This one has been particularly cursed to film, as you can imagine. It's been a stressful time, but we got to the end of it. We did it. I'm finally going to cut this camera and go and edit it, and it's going to be great. And Luna is having a snooze and she's so cute and I'm so worried about her, but she's fine now. That was a very intense book as well. I thought the cover, I thought, that's a funny cover, how hilarious. And then it turned into a duality of being thing and intense, which it's sort of all of these Animorphs books. They have such silly covers and such serious books. As ever, if you do want to discuss Animorphs, come hang out on Discord where we have a wonderful time talking about all books, and I have a dedicated Animorphs channel. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated, and it will mean that you don't miss any more Animorphs videos as they come out. I don't know if this is going to be a little bit delayed because of the general ag of life, but hopefully it will be out in time. If you are one of my patrons, you will be getting this as early as I can get it to you. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. That's all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
There's gonna be some bloopers now.
So Eric tells them that the Yeerks have bought the buyer's research. Oh, ow, oh, ow.